Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Hope you're all doing well and keeping safe. This is going to be the Erling Haaland show, it really is, based around the rumours linking Chelsea to Haaland this summer. It feels now like the transfer window is officially starting, it's going to get going, and Chelsea's pursuit of Haaland, or a pursuit of a massive transfer that has been rumoured for weeks, it feels like Haaland might become the Kai Havertz of this window, meaning that if you remember last year, Kai Havertz, that went on for months. You know, in terms of all the other transfers that happened pretty quickly, actually, with the exception, I think, of Ben Chilwell, that took a little bit longer, and for months that was rumoured. Really, Kai took all of the summer until he signed for Chelsea, and given this is going to cost a lot more, kind of 95%, I think it will cost and absolutely will smash Chelsea's transfer record if we were to sign Haaland. But many reliable reports coming out now claiming that Chelsea are going in for Haaland, or at least trying to see if the move is viable. Many parts to this that we're going to discuss in today's video. Also want to bring up Christian Pulisic scoring a massive goal for USA, and just looking forward to him next season and seeing if he can have a bigger impact on all of his injury problems last season as well. But make sure, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. We're going to be covering the Euros, the England games on this channel. We're going to give you my predicted England 11, and of course keeping up to date with all the big Chelsea news. And I also want to say a massive thank you to my sponsor for Let's Talk Chelsea this year, Lucid FC. Great guys, great clothes. You can pick up this Lucid FC graphic t-shirt, white t-shirt here, which is great now the weather is getting a lot warmer and better in the UK as we get into the summer months. You can use my discount code CFC at checkout to get $15 off or £12 off all orders. Get in the description box below, use the link and help the guys that support this channel. Thank you, Lucid, for supporting Let's Talk Chelsea in 2021. But let's get into the Erling Haaland news. This was kind of all triggered last night by Jan Age Fortoft. I've probably got his name wrong, but he did a lot of big reporting last year in terms of Kai Havertz. This tweet is apparently a reliable source to talk about the news. RE Erling Haaland, Chelsea working intense to get Haaland. He is seen as the missing player to make them challenge for the Premier League title next season. Fee very high, but confidence this can be solved. The main obstacle could be wage structure at Chelsea. And then we move on to Matt Law, probably the top Chelsea reporter in terms of transfer news, or one of the most reliable, sort of followed up with this. Chelsea pursuing Erling Haaland interest and looking at whether move is viable. He brings up not only the point that Chelsea are pursuing Haaland and trying to see if the move can be done this summer, but also he understands that Chelsea have already made attempts to explore whether or not Dortmund would be interested in Tammy Abraham, either as part of a deal for Haaland or in a separate transfer. It is still unclear whether Chelsea will make an official bid for Haaland, given the cost of the deal for the striker would be more than £150 million and smash their wage structure, but they are working behind the scenes to find out if a transfer could be viable. The striker hunt is a big thing for Chelsea this year, and we spoke about Romelu Lukaku, who personally is my first choice, and I could bring it up in discussion around Haaland. Lewandowski, Aguero, Harry Kane, even I was speaking about Danny Ings last week. I mean, Aubameyang's been mentioned too. So there's been so many names brought up in terms of Chelsea strikers, or at least players we'd want to sign this summer. I think the first thing to say is it's good to see that Chelsea are trying to get moves done early, or at least going to be serious this window like they were last time. And I think the thing I want to stress this summer, which I think is not only what we're hearing from reliable Chelsea reporters, but also what I want to see from the club, is going for the first choice. And if you can't get the first choice, don't go for B and C and D options like we have in the past, and settle for players who aren't really going to massively upgrade the current squad and kind of make it a more bloated squad than it already is. I think that's a key thing for me, and what I like, you know, if we can't get Haaland, then don't try and sign someone that isn't at his level and isn't going to massively upgrade a team that is developing. You know, you can see Timo Werner potentially having a stronger second season. I'll get to Christian Pulisic later in this episode. Of course, Kai Havertz finding his form now and confidence in that number 9 role, and you could see him being the long-term sort of forward for Chelsea. Mason Mount, there are many other players within this squad that you're excited about. So I like that idea. I like the idea of going for your first choice, and if it can't work, you know, we only need 1 or 2 signings for me this summer. I think 2 in striker and also central defensive midfield are sort of my 2 key priority positions for Chelsea this summer, so I understand that. But looking at Haaland, listen, I'm not gonna, I'll get into the sort of wage structure issue and sort of how much it would cost and why a fee of that level is kind of still ridiculous to me. I mean, I still think, is any player worth 150 million? And also, can you live up to the extreme hype of 150 million given what it actually entails for Chelsea to spend that amount. But there is no denying that Haaland is a generational talent. I think him and Mbappe are the top two sort of brightest young prospects at the moment. They are freakishly good talents. I hate using the term generational because, as with many terms in football now, a bit like world class, it sort of gets overused to death. So what does it really mean? Because many players are given the generational tag when I don't think they really deserve it. But he absolutely suits that tag. His stats from this year, his goal scoring, his finishing ability is just absolutely ridiculous. His stats from this season: 41 goals in 41 appearances for Borussia Dortmund in all competitions, 27 goals in 27 Bundesliga starts, 10 goals in 8 starts in the Champions League. So just ridiculous. And it's the one of the biggest areas Chelsea need to improve. I mean, defensively, we've been massively improved by Thomas Tuchel. It's just that final part of the pitch. We've underachieved in terms of our XG this year. We've underperformed our XG multiple times. I think expected Chelsea did sort of a thread on this at the end of the season in like our remaining, I think, FA Cup and Premier League games, especially the Premier League. We underperformed our XG a number of times. If you watch Chelsea last season for the majority of it, I think one of the bigger takeaways was we just couldn't finish our chances, whether that was through Timo Werner, whether that was through Kai Havertz, finally scored the biggest goal of the season in Porto, but missed some big chances in the Premier League. A number of players that you could pick up that missed big chances. It's been a big problem for Chelsea pretty much since Diego Costa left. We haven't been able to bring in someone of that clinical edge that is needed for this squad to take them from, say, the top 4 fight to a Premier League title challenge, and Haaland would absolutely bring that. I think there's no denying that. I think his stats prove that he is a world-class talent already. He's a generational talent. You can throw all the cliche tags onto him. He is an extraordinary talent at his age. So there's no denying that if he signs for Chelsea, it's a massive deal, and you feel like he could add the spark to Chelsea to propel us once again to the top of the Premier League. Absolutely, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And that's when I get into the sort of the wage structure and sort of the financial side of it. That's not me doubting what you have in Erling Haaland. There'd be no complaints from me if we sign him, but I do think there are some concerns. And also, I bring up Lukaku here. Could we sign someone for a little bit cheaper that actually, I think in some ways is a safer bet? I mean, as I'll get back to 150 million and the wages too, and you throw Raiola onto that as well. There's a lot of moving parts to this transfer, which I think is going to make it kind of difficult. And I think it is a big risk when you're spending that amount of money, especially for a young player who still has a long way to go in his career and hasn't played in the Premier League before, unlike Lukaku, who is, I think, the safest bet you can get, even though he'd cost a lot of money to bring to Stamford Bridge this summer. But the wage structure issue, and I think Adam Newson, who of course I've had on the channel several times, great guy, great journalist, great guest on the channel, so please go and follow him and follow his work, put up this thread last night sort of regarding the news around Haaland, and I think this very much resonates with what I'm feeling currently. There is part of me that is uncomfortable with Chelsea being prepared to smash their wage structure to land Erling Haaland. Should a new signing be paid a significantly bigger salary than the key players in a Champions League winning side? I'm not so sure. Man United had a problem when negotiating a new contract for David De Gea after bringing in Alexis Sanchez on more money than the rest of the squad. It complicates things. Does all this mean Chelsea shouldn't sign Haaland? No, but it's something to keep in mind. And we think about it with the current squad, but also players like N'Golo Kante. There's lots of rumours around him signing a new contract for Chelsea. If we were to bring in Haaland and that contract wasn't signed yet, Kante is the best in his position, I think, in the world. So he could absolutely turn around and go, well, I have a little bit more than Haaland, please, because look at what I've just done for you and look at what I've done for you over a number of years. I don't know if Kante is that sort of character, but he's at a world-class level. He is an elite player in his position. So there is that part of it too, and why the deal may not happen this summer, because it costs that amount of money. Now, there is a risk that if you don't sign Haaland this summer, there's more than likely a chance next year when maybe things are a lot more normal in terms of a transfer market, that say Bayern Munich come in, Real Madrid, even say Barcelona, one of those massive elite clubs come in for him and sign in next summer. That's a big thing. But I think that if Chelsea do need to sign a striker, but as I say, if you can get top quality, and I still would say Lukaku is my first choice above Haaland, number one, because I don't think the fee is going to cost 150 million. We're probably not going to have to smash our whole wage structure for him. It would cost a lot, but I've brought up this in previous videos on Let's Talk Chelsea in terms of his numbers in the Premier League are just ridiculous. players, and I don't think there's that Bundesliga tax that I know Nini FC spoke about yesterday in his video. Please go and check that out. He covered the Erling Haaland situation. It's going to be an interesting one. I think a lot's going to happen in the coming weeks. It's going to, as we experienced last year with Kai Havertz, it's going to be a long drawn out process this still, if it is going to happen. So don't get overexcited. Don't be, don't rule it out. We have to wait and see. We've got the Euros coming up. Of course, Haaland isn't involved in the Euros, which may actually help Chelsea in the transfer business, but it's going to be interesting. And if Haaland does sign for Chelsea, that's going to be a mega piece of news. It really is to cover on the channel. So let me know your opinions on Haaland. I know I put up on the channel whether you think 150 million is worth spending this summer on Haaland. Let me know in the comments below. But the second point is just sort of a quick thing for me. Christian Pulisic scoring the winner for the USA against Mexico in the CONCACAF final on Sunday, a 3-2 win. It was a massive goal for the USA. It was a massive goal for Christian Pulisic, and what a basically week it's been for Pulisic, winning the Champions League with Chelsea and then winning that final for the USA on Sunday against Mexico. He's a really good penalty taker, and he doesn't take any penalties for Chelsea. I know Jorginho obviously is the big penalty taker and has really done, I know he had a shaky bit in the middle of last season, but mostly Jorginho has been an excellent penalty taker for Chelsea. But it's interesting, if we ever did get to a penalty shootout, I think Pulisic's one of the names I'd put forward if he was on the pitch. I want to speak a little bit about Pulisic, because Pulisic is maybe one of the players that can be forgotten because he hasn't always been a guaranteed star, but had a better end to the season. But once again, a bit like 1920, his season was massively disrupted by fitness problems, several injuries across the season, and there is that massive concern that this is going to be something that is going to sort of rule him out, or at least really detract from his potential. Because I've constantly said this, and I made this big statement at the start of last season, or at least in my predictions, that I think I may have even predicted stupidly that Pulisic was going to be the top goal scorer. That was very much incumbent on what he'd done at the end of 1920, and he had a fully fit season, which he never did. So much upheaval. I still think that Pulisic has got it within him to be a star player for Chelsea. There are many good pieces. I think Sam Ingersoll from Football London wrote a piece that I'll put up on screen now about Pulisic and the potential of him being a big US star for football over there, and sort of what he could do at Chelsea. I've constantly said about Pulisic, in terms of wide players, he has such good anticipation to score goals. I think he's a really good finisher, and I do think if he stays fit, I think he will be a huge player for us. And getting into the striker thing, if Chelsea cannot sign a striker, and we're just with the same attackers again, basically, I mean, will we let Tammy Abraham go if we don't sign any new forwards or attackers? That's quite an interesting thing to bring up, because I'm sure that Tuchel would at least like 3 normal strikers, 3 strikers to choose from. But in terms of the forwards next year, then you're looking at all of the strikers or all the forwards we have to be a lot more productive and sort of share the goals around. And Pulisic is one of those players who I do think has it within him to score quite a few goals if he can stay fit, and that is the big thing. If he can't stay fit, I think it will derail his Chelsea career. But not only in terms of his all-round quality, his off-the-ball runs, his dribbling ability, I mean, he is an electric player. I think the potential Pulisic has, I think, is very high, and I think it's very easy to forget how good Pulisic was in 1920 and how good he was, say, against Real Madrid in both legs, the Champions League semi-final, scoring the goal, but in particular the second leg, I mean, coming off the bench, setting up the second goal for Mason Mount. This is a player who I think at times has maybe been, I think, demeaned or, sort of written off at times. I think this is a big player for Chelsea. If I think we can get him right next year, if he can have a strong pre-season, I think he's going to be one of the key attackers next year, just in my opinion. So give me your thoughts on Christian Pulisic, because I know a lot of you guys are big fans of Pulisic, as I was last year. I think there are always going to be doubts when players get big injury problems, and the amount of attackers we have in our squad, I mean, it's hard sometimes to predict who's going to be the big player, especially with a coach like Tuchel who rotates so freely. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Pulisic next season. But let me know your opinions on Christian Pulisic and his future at Chelsea in the comments below. But that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.